So, can you hear me?
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
I can hear you.
Hear me?
All right. So, yeah. Okay. So, once again, we're going to be continuing to use the same podcast artwork that we were using for the last one. This is going to be one of those podcasts that's not related to Warhammer, just related to the additional stuff that we also talk about. Yeah, so we're talking about God of War today.
God of War.
Yeah.
Great series.
Yes. I will say this, though. I've seen a number of people, I've seen a number of reaction videos. You know how you can have like the playthrough videos and you get to watch the person as they're streaming it? I get to watch a number of people who got introduced to God of War from the God of War 4 game. And it is so awesome when when that is their opening experience. And then they move into like the earlier games. Because the transition is just like a slap in the face, in all honesty.
Yeah, I am one of those people per se. Like I've seen the God of War series as I've grown up, so I've seen per se like 1, 2, 3. I played 3 a little bit, but like I haven't actually sat down and played a full game.
Yeah.
Of God of War before God of War 4. God of War 4, I have played multiple times. New Game Plus, all armor. Defeated the Valkyries. Every aspect of it. I have gone everywhere in the world, everywhere in the map, looked up every secret. The game was just so much fun, and I have to say, the music. I have the soundtrack on my phone, and I fucking love it. I'll sit down like I'm ready to go to bed, and I'll just fucking put that soundtrack on. Some of those songs you can just fall asleep to, and you're just happy.
Yeah. So for a lot of people nowadays, I enjoy the fact that for them, God of War 4 was the threshold through which that they were able to experience this series, because this series is amazing. This series is amazing.
I 100% agree.
So, first off, before we start really talking about the game itself, let's go ahead and talk about the stupidity that was EA and their take on video games. I've already shared the screen, but can you see this?
Yes, I can see it. And I'm getting pissed off every second I keep seeing that title.
When I first heard about this, I first came across this information in a YouTube video, and it was, excuse me, and it was a moment where I had to just stop and process the stupidity that I had just heard. A video game company, a company whose entire purpose is making video games, apparently does not know their audience well enough to know that single-player games are still a thing.
I mean, I say this. There is a large majority of video games now that have a multiplayer basis, but still have a large influence in single player. Hell, even Call of Duty, as huge as it is, still has a campaign. I mean, Modern Warfare 2019, campaign. Cold War, 2020, campaign. They have their campaigns. There's still a single player aspect to it.
Yeah. But this was something that after I got done processing the stupidity, I just started laughing about, because let me go ahead and try and find, because I actually looked this up when we were going to try this podcast last week. Here we go. So apparently, according to segmentnext.com, God of War 4 sold over 10 million copies by May 2019.
Jesus.
That means in 1 year it sold over 10 million copies.
Jesus. I mean, I'll say this. I can see why. Because I was not a huge influence in God of War. I've heard of it, I've seen things, but when I played this game, holy shit! It's like I was introduced to something I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Just kind of like Warhammer 40K,
Yeah.
but this was just phenomenal.
Yeah. So that was one thing that was one bit of controversy surrounding this game. Another one was someone commenting that, oh, finally Kratos is able to show that he can be a sensitive human being, to which I, apparently along with many other people, were like, you little dickheads. God of War has always had these moments where Kratos was a sensitive guy.
Yeah, wasn't there a scene where was it Pandora? I think in God of War, is it God of War 3 where she dies, or is it God of War 2? Am I thinking the right? Like I said, I don't know everything about the series, so I've only seen things. I know there are scenes, like I know about his body. The reason it's ash is like it's his family Ares and all. I know all about all that. So it's like when people say what you just said, whoever said that either didn't interpret the games well, or is just some kid trying to stir up a pot.
My thing is this. In all likelihood, the people who made such a comment were the kind of people who saw the general gameplay and thought, oh, that's just how it is throughout the entire thing. It's like one big track, and you're just slaughtering enemies in the most brutal fashion you can, and then once you slaughter enough, congratulations, you win the game. Like, no, that's not how that works. In every single game, as far as I can think of, there is at least one scene that highlights Kratos' humanity and the turmoil that he feels.
Their scene, I would like to say, the scene that I see that the most in at the end of the game in God of War 4. Oh, spoilers, by the way, if anyone hasn't played it. If you haven't played God of War, the newest God of War, go play it. I don't give a shit. Go play it. It's
3 years.
One of the best games ever.
3 years.
At this point.
Everyone who's ever had an interest in God of War knows exactly about the game, about its ending, about everything of it. So there's no need for a spoiler warning.
Yeah. The scene that I'm talking about is when Kratos takes off the bandages off of his arms at the end. That scene made me cry. Because I did know the history of Kratos. I knew before I started, like, the history and everything. I just had never played the games. But being able to see him basically feel free for once, after so many years of being stuck under basically the boots of the gods. I mean, it was just mind-blowing.
Yeah. But I think that's about it in regards to controversy surrounding the game. So let's go ahead and start talking about the game itself. I love the game. I love the game a lot. It was a bit of a transition because obviously I played the 6 games previously, so I was used to a very specific kind of game. I was used to the fixed camera angles, jumping around all over the place, exploring the map by having to make sure that you were paying attention to what the camera was showing you. Sometimes a very limited view at that.
Yeah. For me, I didn't have that because I hadn't played any prior.
Yeah.
However, I will say though, I had stated that I played Devil May Cry, and there's still a lot of fixed cameras in Devil May Cry games. So it was still a bit of a transition to me, especially because I'll say this is one of the first games I've ever played where it's like over the shoulder.
Yeah, third person.
So getting used to that kind of third person over the shoulder was a bit challenging at first, but I will tell you that it is definitely broadened the horizon of games that I like to play now.
Yeah. Beyond that, the story of the game itself was super touching. We got to see there was a description, a phrase. I don't remember exactly who said it, but it was summarized as Kratos is having to teach his son how to be a god, and his son is teaching Kratos how to be a human.
Oh, that is a perfect description.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yes, so the game itself, like all open world games, just so much to explore. You can sink so many hours into this, just exploring every single area. And the thing about it is that in order to explore, it makes you realize that, oh no, there's something I clearly need to get through this obstacle. I don't have it yet. I guess I'm going to have to come back in a later time.
Yeah, and then you have to remember where that place was when you finally do get the obstacle. Because the map is, I mean, it's all open world.
Yeah.
And I will say that was one of the aspects I think that I enjoyed the most. A God of War game that's so, the open worldness of it, having the map and being able to look at it. Because like I said, games like that where it's like the combat system and everything, the games that I had played prior were like Devil May Cry and stuff. And that wasn't an open world like that. It was missions.
Yeah,
this
it was
time
very
it was
linear.
open world.
Yeah.
God, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, open world versus linear. Open world is something that you can sink a lot more time into. Though it is always a little frustrating when I see people playing these kind of games and they're just like, what am I missing? What am I missing? You're missing a piece of equipment that you get in like 5 or 6 parts of the story. You're not even like halfway through the storyline, and so you don't even have anything that you need to get through this obstacle. But instead, they're just like throw, bash, and they'll be sitting there for like 10-15 minutes struggling to do this, simply because.
And then they'll look up the walkthrough.
They'll sometimes look up the walkthrough. But other times they'll just finally come to their senses, give up on this. I'll come back for this later. And they'll try again, and it is always so fun, especially if they're like, this is what I needed at that puzzle so far long ago. Oh my god. 10 minutes of my day.
That realization.
10 minutes of my time wasted because I was impatient and I didn't know that I didn't just get everything at the start. Oh no. Yeah,
there was a couple times, like, okay, the beginning of the game, where you go, it's where you meet the first enemies that are frost type enemies, basically. When I first met those enemies, I was like, whoa, this is different, and so I was like, alright, I'll hit them with the frost axe, and I realized, I was like, I'm not doing anything with the frost axe. Now, I also want to say this, I didn't really pay attention to all the things popping up saying, hey, you should probably do this. Yeah, I didn't pay attention to the tutorial. That's a really bad habit for me. But one of the things that I noticed in that area that I didn't understand was, okay, everyone here knows at this point that the Valkyries are in the chambers, and you need the crystal to get into the chambers. Well, the big window or mirror, the diamond mirror, I saw that in the first area, I was like, why can't I fucking open this thing? And I was sitting there for like 5 minutes, like trying to figure out how the fuck do I open this door.
The thing about those open world games is that it relies upon you basically revisiting it at times later on in the story. So unfortunately, there are some people who are just too used to the linear story, where it's literally like, oh, I'm at point A, I get this item that unlocks door B. I go to area B, I get item C, unlocks door C. People who are too used to linear games, that's how they play the games. So open world games where they actually have to like revisit areas with new equipment every once in a while to try and collect the things that they couldn't collect before, it sometimes is almost a bit of a shock, a kind of like a culture shock, in all honesty.
Yeah, I would say that was kind of my feel to it too, because I would say that I had played some open world games, but nothing like this degree.
Nothing that matters.
Especially, yeah. I mean, like Final Fantasy and stuff like that I played before, and that can be open world, but at the same time is that Final Fantasy, the concept of it is an RPG open world. I wasn't thinking that way when I got into God of War. I was thinking linear Devil May Cry way when I got to that. So this was definitely different whenever I got into it.
Yeah. So Beyond that, there's not really much to say about God of War 4 itself. It was an immense undertaking, clearly, because when we did our Kratos versus War video, we were doing it under the assumption that the game was going to come out within the next couple months. 2 years later, we finally get it.
Yeah, that was... I will say that was definitely interesting whenever we actually did the original video. And then... See, because now I kind of wonder if we took Kratos from the sequence after, when he came in God of War 4, what would have been the difference between the battle then and the battle that we set up?
Well, that's a neat thought as well, but it's not... It's a neat thought as well, but my point was that we released Kratos vs. War to try and capitalize upon God of War's upcoming release and try and get views towards us. I was not thinking, and I was not saying that in regards to, oh, if we took Kratos from God of War 4 versus War, what would happen? No. That's a neat little side thing, but I was more like, let's ride on the coattails of this upcoming game and try and get our video some views.
It was a good time to do that. I feel, and that, I would think, if I remember, that was our first video, wasn't it?
That was the first video, yeah.
Yeah. God, that's so long ago.
Yeah. The time between now and God of War 4's release is longer than the time between God of War 4's release and the making of that video.
True.
So, I don't really have much more to say on it. I was really impressed with it. It took a long time to make, clearly, but it was well worth the wait.
I will say that everything about the game, I never really had a moment where there was something I did not particularly like. There's only one instance, and I think it was not due to the game itself being bad, but just due to me not being as good as a player of God of War.
Yeah.
There is a point, and many people know, where you go to a specific world, or should I say realm, where you have to basically go through a whole bunch of fog that kills you slowly.
No, not Muspelheim. Niflheim?
Niflheim, I think is what it was.
Yeah, I've done that.
I'll be honest, like, that area probably was the one that gave me the most trouble, because I was not used to... battling a clock is one thing. Battling your health bar while fighting enemies, while dodging traps, that's a little different.
Yeah, when I completed... I think I managed to actually complete that one, so it was a lot of fun to do. It took a lot of backtracking, a lot of fighting. Worst case scenario, it was like, awesome, I get some more practice doing this. There was like a Valkyrie there too, wasn't there?
Yeah, you have to fight the Valkyrie in the fog.
Yeah, that was an interesting fight as well, and it was so awesome knowing that, oh, this is probably going to be like one of the harder Valkyrie fights until I get to the Queen.
Yeah, I will say that definitely was one of the harder Valkyrie fights.
Yeah. Beyond that...
Can we also talk real quick, though, about the Valkyrie Queen fight?
Oh, that bitch.
Oh my god. Dude, I want to say this now. That has to be one of my most favorite, like, secret boss fights. Just the best. Like, I always, you've got these amazing boss fights with the final boss of the game. But the Valkyrie Queen, that fight, just in that small area, you had to, use all the skills you had. The Valkyrie Queen had all the abilities of all the other Valkyries.
Yeah.
Just more powerful. It just made her so much more fun to fight. Being able to apply everything you had to use to kill all the other Valkyries to just fight her. And even then, it was still so difficult to beat her in a sense.
Yeah. So, as far as optional bosses go, that one was, even on easy mode, like, really punishing.
Yes!
So, on harder modes, it's probably even worse, so...
Oh, yeah, no, I beat her on the harder modes.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I want to say this. I don't think it's actually harder. Because once you've beat her enough times, once you've gone through the motion, you know how to beat her.
Yeah, you've already
But
figured
I
out
will
her
say,
patterns.
but I will say it becomes more punishing because the amount of health she takes away gets a lot more.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm more. But yeah, so New Game Plus, I will touch upon that a little bit. New Game Plus for God of War 4, I don't think I've played around with that too much, but from what I understand, after you finish the game, you basically can restart it again with all your equipment, all your upgrades, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But all the enemies stay the exact same strength that they were when you started the first time.
No.
So they also so they level with you.
I believe that they. It's been so long since I actually played it. I'm trying to think. I think actually, whenever you do New Game Plus, you can actually choose to change the difficulty, if I remember correctly, and so they actually become harder.
Not
So
what
like
I'm
you can
talking about.
stay at the same difficulty. Then
Not what I'm talking about.
Then what are you talking about? Because I'm confused.
Okay, so you know how there are certain games that have what are called leveled enemies, where you go stronger, so your enemy goes stronger as well. You become level 1, so your enemies become like level 2, and it doesn't matter what setting you have it at, it just automatically levels up with you. My thought was, if it's New Game Plus, you start over, you're like level 20, and you're back in the level 1 area, and you're just looking at these Draugr like, I'm your god now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more what it's like?
No, it's the opposite. All the enemies are more towards your level still.
Yeah, then I hate it. I hate it so much then.
But they're just not. I mean, in a sense, they are your level, but they are still easier to kill, I would say.
My point though is this: New Game Plus it has a very specific way that you're supposed to do it. It's supposed to be basically a power trip. It's supposed to be so that you start the new game, you have all your equipment, and you're basically going through that game with the enemies at the same level they were before. So if you're like going up against level 1 Baldur at that first fight with the at the cabin, New Game Plus Kratos just kicks him around like a football. That's actually
like.
And I have such a strong opinion on New Game Plus because I've actually played the Bloodborne New Game Plus and was deeply betrayed by that.
Oh yeah, I can agree with that. Speaking of which, before we continue, I did want to tell you, I have officially beaten Bloodborne without dying. Whole game, orphan and everything.
Even at that
Let me
first
tell
bit?
you. Huh?
Even at that first bit with that first wolf?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What?
Even at that first bit with the first wolf in the clinic?
Yep. I beat everything. No deaths. Ran through the whole game.
Yeah.
Dude, that was not worth my time.
I wouldn't imagine so.
But
to continue this
let me
little,
tell you, when I killed the orphan, I felt pretty good.
to continue this little tangent, there was actually something I heard, a story that I read about a guy who played Bloodborne, but he didn't die at the first wolf either. So he eventually got to that first big boss. I don't know who his name was, like Ludwig something. Yeah. And he eventually managed to defeat that boss. But because he didn't die the first time, he didn't have any weapons.
So he had to fight with his bare hands.
He fought the first boss by karate chopping the fucking thing to death.
I want to try that now.
It sounds terrible, it sounds awful, but that is something...
Sounds like fun.
That is something where I'm just like, I'm curious, but also a little bit disturbed.
Well, I'll go ahead and give it a shot, and then if I'm able to do it, I'll go ahead and redo it, and then we'll video it, see if I can actually make a video out of it.
But yeah, so back to the God of War games, though. I don't really have much more to say about the fourth installment. It was just a really good game.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Everything about the game, in my opinion, was great. The music was great. The scenery was great. The visuals were great. I mean, even the lore was great.
Alright, so in that case, we'll go ahead and shift over to the area that I know more about. So, to touch upon the point that was made about, oh, finally Kratos gets to show that he's not just a bloodthirsty psychopath, there were touching moments in every single game. Okay? God of War 1, back in 2005, we get to see that Kratos is like super protective of his family during a sequence near the end. Like, he literally is fighting tooth and nail to protect them. That's not something that some deranged psychopath with nothing more than bloodlust on the mind would do. Okay? God of War 2. At one point, Kratos is like at his lowest point. He is about ready to give up. I want you to keep that phrase in mind, though, that Kratos was about ready to say, I quit, I'm just going to go and live out the rest of my life and do my own shit. He was at that point in his life. And he got shown a vision of Sparta on fire.
And then he decided to go and try to help, right?
Yeah. So basically, during that little sequence, he got informed by another Spartan that, oh yeah, after you got stripped of your powers and got sent on this quest to find the Fates, Zeus came to Sparta and lit it on fire. You weren't there to protect us. And during this little vision sequence afterwards, Kratos gets to talk with Gaia in the form of his wife, and we actually get to see that he is just struck by guilt. He even actually says, "Can you ever forgive me?" He literally says it in a weepy voice.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I still don't understand this person who says, like, oh, you can just go on a murderous rampage and kill everything as a psychopath. Like, do you not understand character development at all? Like, you not understand, like, what Kratos has been through? I haven't seen everything, and even I know that's the biggest bullshit I've ever heard.
Yeah, every single game has something to do with Kratos' family in such a way that showcases that he is still human. He's a broken, twisted, deranged human at times, but he's still human.
Yeah.
One thing that I do note, and I'll have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure I saw the name Cory Balrog on like the producers' names in the God of War 4 game.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that's important, Balrog was a part of the original God of War, like way back in 2005. He helped make the first one, so he's been with the series from start to present.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why, despite some of the interesting continuity issues in the fourth installment, the games have proceeded nicely, and the newest one was so well done.
I mean, I have seen, because of course I know that you have recorded it on the channel, so I've seen some gameplay of you playing God of War. My brother has played God of War, and I have played a little bit of the God of War series as well. So I've seen different things, I've played different things. And of course, can I go ahead and take a small tangent to the scene where, what was it again that you made? Oh, that's right, you had a guy burning, and in the background you were playing Burn, Baby, Burn.
Not my proudest work.
God, dude, that was freaking hilarious. I'm sure that's all my friends.
Not my proudest work. Not my worst.
So good work.
Not my worst either.
True. I will say that there is a lot of sophistication, especially to the puzzles.
Yeah.
If a deranged maniac would not sit there and solve all these puzzles,
yeah.
A deranged maniac would just bust his way through everything.
He'd probably die, of course, because these puzzles you can't just brute force your way in. But
exactly.
Yeah, these games rely upon you actually being able to think through the issues. It's not just slaughter, slaughter, slaughter. I've won the game.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how Devil May Cry really is, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Like, Devil May Cry has puzzles, but Devil May Cry is more the concept of kill demons, kill demons, kill demons, kill demons. Solve a puzzle, kill demons, you know, continue and repeat.
It's fighting interspersed with little commercial break puzzles.
Exactly. This is more, I would say, puzzles with intermission breaks and fighting.
Yeah. It's the fighting is definitely a big part of it, but it is very much secondary to like the puzzles, the platforming. The enemies just add an extra complication that you need to focus on at times.
True.
So, in terms of the game itself, the games themselves are also really awesome when you get to look at them and get to like play them in the series that they were in the number that they were released in, because you also get to watch them evolve over time.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think it would be difficult for me to basically branch off of that because I haven't really seen that because I haven't played them.
So what I'm talking about is you've seen enough of like God of War 3 to know that it may not be photorealistic graphics, but it is pretty good graphics there.
Yeah, true.
Okay, so God of War Ascension was released after 3. In Ascension, you can see like the pores on Kratos' skin. You can see the skin reflecting light and showcasing a somewhat rough texture.
So you're saying that not only did they, per se, change graphics up, they really changed up how things visually appealed to the players as well.
Well, that too, but in just the graphics quality that they did, you get to see that they really capitalized upon the technology that they had available at the time. I will ask this. Have you seen the travesty that I included in the God of War 4 playthrough?
No. I feel like I'm missing something here.
Let me go ahead and just... This is probably the one that I'm most ashamed of.
Why?
You'll see.
Now I'm concerned.
Yes. As soon as I can find the playlist.
Now I'm really concerned. What's so bad about it?
So, how well can you see this?
I can see it just fine.
Can you hear this? Hold on.
Yeah, I can hear it. I can hear it.
Wait for it.
Why? Just why? Why?
It gets worse the longer you watch.
I don't understand. Why did you do this?
I wanted it to rain, so I figured the best way to do it was to make God cry.
God. Like, it's such a wonderful game on the Betty soundtrack. Did you just do this to put this in the background just for fun?
I did actually not intend for it to line up and sync up so well. That was completely accidental. I swear.
Yeah, sure it was. God damn it, dude. Oh my gosh. Why?
Like I said, I wanted rain. So I figured the best way to do it was to make God cry.
You certainly cried, alright. You destroyed the best creation.
What have you done?
God damn it. I mean, for comic relief, that was definitely a perfect timing for it. And, dude, you matched that up so perfectly.
By complete accident as well.
God damn.
It was not the last time I included, the song is called Yakety Sax.
Yeah, I know what the song is.
It is not the last time I included it in God of War.
Oh dear lord.
A more recent example.
Oh, there's my PlayStation. Sorry to everybody.
I believe it's in this one. Yes.
This is God of War Ascension.
Yes. Once again, I'm not proud.
Must be missing something.
You probably can't hear it, but it's building up.
I can hear it. You know, as dumb as this is, none of this surprises me. I don't know why. It doesn't surprise me.
That's actually, in a way, that's kind of insulting, but I can't deny it.
Pick the most serious game you can, and what you do to it.
I massacre it as best I can. I like to think it's going to be almost like a trademark thing of ours, where we take like these super serious games where we have these moments where we're trying to figure out a puzzle, and in post we just speed it up and put Yakety Sax on there.
Just in the back, just like in mid-game, we'll be like, oh great, we gotta solve this puzzle. And then like we're stumped, and we're just like, wait, you hear that? Just in the background, it's just building up.
It's like the Supernatural fandom on Tumblr. You're like, what is that? Oh no, it's coming! Like you get to hear it build up in the background too.
Yeah.
If you're not paying attention,
I feel like that's a moment.
What?
So I feel like that's a moment where I'd just be like, don't need this anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, on the... I don't know much about the God of War games, the original 6, and what kind of controversies they may have inspired, but earlier we were talking about like multiplayer. God of War Ascension did have a multiplayer mode, but I don't think it really went anywhere.
I mean, I say it like this. Anybody who states that single-player games are dead are wrong.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because there is a large majority of people, and you might not think this, that don't have internet. Like, it's not just us, you know, we make YouTube videos, we play video games, you know, we play with people on the internet. There's a large majority of people out there who just don't have internet or don't have access to good internet. So what do? They play single-player games.
And the thing is, I've actually included this as part of my, you know, the big argument that video games cause violence and that video games are useless? one of the arguments in that is that video games are all about being a loner loser who doesn't have any friends. Like, I'm sorry, let me direct you to what EA has to say on video games. As far as EA is concerned, multiplayer is the only thing that's going forward with games.
Yeah.
That very existence, the very existence of multiplayer, like flies in the face of gamers being like loner losers.
Yeah, I mean, even more so is I did a speech and debate topic on video games when I was going through speech class in college, and my topic was you have to write about something that's misconceived within a community. So I wrote about video games, of course. I said how video games are looked down upon in so many aspects, and the biggest things that I found is that the aspects that people look down upon have other alternative reasons to it, like violence in school. Well, no offense, if a game is causing violence in school, maybe parenting is causing violence in school, maybe teachers not giving a shit is causing violence in school, maybe bullying is causing shit to happen in school. I mean, there are so many other reasons for certain things that people just blame video games on, or violent movies. Like, people understand there's a disconnect sometimes between your reality and fantasy. I mean, nobody, if you told me today that it's like, oh, we're going to go play some goat simulator and have this goat, like, fly around in physics, its tongue is, like, 50 meters long, none of that is realistic.
That's
It'll blow up a gas station.
That's literally a shit post in a video game.
I mean...
But yeah, what you were saying, at one point I actually did an essay about that, and it talked about how, in comparison to a lot of other factors, video games are a very peripheral factor into violence. There's a lot more proximal factors that have a lot more to weigh in on it.
Yeah, one of the biggest factors that I had is that it helps a lot with kids with ADHD.
Oh yeah.
Kids with ADHD have a better attention span because they have the ability to focus in certain aspects.
Yeah. But, so yeah, in regards to video gaming, in regards to God of War, Ascension did kind of mess around with the multiplayer, but I think that they were smart enough to realize that that wasn't really going anywhere, so that's why they didn't include any of it in God of War 4.
Not surprised.
Beyond that, my big gripe whenever I see people doing a God of War playthrough, and there are a couple things. First off, there are those people who like jump into one of these older games and go straight to hard mode. You know how in modern video games there's a bit more, the game is kind of intuitive, like it can kind of figure out what you're trying to do, even if you can't like properly articulate it with your emotions?
Yeah.
Older games, as you might know, don't have that kind of intuitiveness.
Yeah, there's a lot more Easter eggs that you have to figure out on your own.
Okay, but yeah, so in older games, it's very much more skill-based. You have to be very deliberate with what you're doing.
Yes.
So this means that people who jump straight into like the hard mode, they're basically jumping into not simply the deep end, they're jumping into the deep end with weights on while not knowing how to swim.
Yeah. I mean, I can clearly tell you that video games nowadays, when people are like, oh yeah, like this first-person shooter, it's, you know, you put it on the hardest difficulty, you won't have any trouble. Back then, if you were playing a first-person shooter, you put it on the hardest difficulty, yeah, you were going to be there for hours.
You're going to look like Swiss cheese very quickly if you were not experienced with that game.
Exactly. That's why I don't understand people who try to just, you know, the first time they're going to play the game on the hardest difficulty. Why? Like, why don't you try to enjoy the story first and then start building yourself?
Yeah. Beyond that, the other thing that really irks me, and, okay, so there are two examples that I have. I've seen two examples. First of them is this one girl named Bright Time on YouTube. She is one of the examples of, she started with God of War 4 and then went back to start playing the older games. And she had a bit of a learning curve because the difference is very dramatic. First off, First off, no free camera. No free camera. So any kind of movement with the joystick that would control the camera, instead just rolls Kratos all over the place. Secondly, Kratos is jumping. That took her a little time to get used to as well. Kratos can't jump in 2018. He doesn't have those hops anymore. And the older ones though, he was a fit young little motherfucker, so he could jump all over the place.
He's got arthritis in his knees.
That's why Atreus was always concerned. Did you hurt your back?
Yeah, I remember that. No one did not hurt my back.
But yeah, so Bright Time, and to her credit, I cannot fault her for this. She handled her defeats, she handled getting her ass kicked at times. She handled it with a degree of grace that, honestly, very impressive. I know a lot of people who do not have that kind of patience with themselves, who like rage quit after a few tries. She just kind of laughed off her defeats. That was one example. That was a good example. A bad example.
Coming from somebody who's played all the Soul series, I can say this now. If you don't have any thick skin, then don't try to just jump into the hardest difficulties.
This brings me to a more frustrating example. I quit watching this one. Her name was Susie Liu on YouTube. I quit watching her playthroughs because I could not stand it any longer. It was physically painful to watch her. Like, it caused me...
That's rough.
It caused me pain to watch her fumble this badly.
So it wasn't the fact that she screwed up so much, it was the fact that she just wasn't good at the game?
She basically made a bunch of errors on her part that made her own playthroughs more difficult. So...
Okay.
You know how... Okay, in God of War 4, you have these runic attacks that automatically recharge and you can use them again.
Yeah.
In all the previous iterations of God of War, you have a fixed pool of magical energy. And you gain access to these various spells throughout your journey. And each spell will take some of that magical energy until you're at 0. And it doesn't recharge on its own.
Okay, I understand.
Susie Liu would do this thing where the moment she got magic and she came across any enemy, no matter how weak, it was like spamming the magic as hard as she could.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Now imagine if you spammed all of this very useful, very precious resource on a bunch of cannon fodder enemies, and then were faced off against a boss. You can kind of see why this is frustrating.
I mean, at the same time also, though, that, to the viewers, as they understand, when you're playing a game like this where you actually have to, you know, you have to be conservative of your resources. You can't just march right into it. It doesn't make any sense for you not to think strategically. So basically what you told me is this girl was just like, oh no, fuck strategy, I'm just gonna go and do all this bullshit.
She tried to play Kratos like a battle mage. First time she did this, it was, okay, the first time she did this, my thought was, okay, she's gonna learn from this and realize, okay, hold on to the magic until I actually have a reason to do it, practice with melee, get that skill up, and then from there, work in the magic from time to time. No. Anytime she had magic and came across enemies, spamming the magic.
Of course.
I got into like an hour of her gameplay of God of War 1, and I was like, I can't watch this anymore. I cannot physically stomach this anymore.
Yes. Alright, hang on one moment, okay? All right, I'm back. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah. So. What?
So basically, you know, the difference in strategy from God of War 4 and the original God of Wars is, per se, a lot different because of the difference in magic use and item use.
Yeah. In God of War 4, you have access to basically... The moment you start killing enemies, they're going to start dropping things like health stones, rage stones. They're going to drop this kind of stuff. And as long as you're quick in smashing them, you can keep the fight going as long as you want. The other God of War games, though, you don't have that option. You have to hope... Can you hear me?
Happened.
I think we got disconnected a little bit. So what were you saying?
Basically, what I was saying is that the red orbs, wasn't it that when you killed enemies you got red orbs or something?
Yeah.
What were those? I'm not 100% sure.
So the red orbs that you got throughout most of the games are experience orbs that once you collect enough, you can pour them into your weapons and basically level them up.
Okay.
So yeah, in the God of War 4, you have like these specific items and resources that you need to upgrade your weapons and equipment. In God of War, throughout the main series, you just kill enemies, collect orbs, pour them into those weapons, and they're stronger.
Okay, so there is definitely... So if I decide to go back, there's definitely going to be a learning curve for the games for me.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Beyond that, though, like I was saying about the health stones that enemies drop, go around, stomp those, keep the fight going, and eventually win through attrition, if nothing else. Earlier God of War games, you have to hope that the enemies you kill will drop health orbs if you are not very good at playing. And oftentimes, they don't.
Okay, so... these people who who basically go to the older games, put it on the hardest difficulty, don't realize that if you just played the 4th game, you basically are going back playing on the easiest difficulty is like playing on the hardest difficulty already. Because they first have the learning curve, and 2, they don't understand the equipment drops, or sorry, the health drops and the orb drops.
If they go back to the older games after only knowing 2018's release, they are going to be pretty much sucking if they jump straight into hard mode. Like, honestly, if you jump into hard mode of the earlier God of War games after playing God of War 2018, like, press F in the chat. Just press F in the chat. There's nothing else to say about that.
Yeah, I think I would like to try the God of War series because I think it would be a lot of fun. I actually have a couple of them for free on my PlayStation that I could play.
Yeah.
I think I have 3 remastered on here.
Yeah.
And I know I have the other. I know I have all the other ones. It's just I haven't played them before. Mainly because my brother played them. So I'll probably get the chance to play them at some point. But back on the whole series of God of War. If anything, I'd like to say that God of War as a whole has been an outstanding series when it comes to single-player games. It is, hands down, something to look up to when making single-player games.
Oh, yeah.
Same with Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry is kind of in that same field. Except for the atrocious that is number 2. We'll not talk about that.
We don't talk about the redheaded stepchild.
Oh, God. It just... there is a lot of people out there, and especially I want to say it's EA. If you really think single-player games are dead, you're an idiot. Because there is a crazy amount of single-player games that are still played to this day. And they're played by so many people. You want to know what EA did? The reason they think that a whole bunch of people don't play single-player games is because they're counting all the ones playing their games.
EA, their whole thing on that is if you have a single player game, you sell it once, and you can't make any more money off that. Multiplayer games, you can have like loot boxes, you can have monthly subscriptions, you can have those pay-to-win features, and that can just keep raking in money from the stupid morons who play it alongside the actual gamers.
So what you're saying, they're not saying single-player games are dead. They're saying single-player games don't make them any more money.
I think that was at the root of their thought process, and then it expanded into them genuinely believing that single-player games are dead. Because as far as they're concerned, who cares about playing on your own? You need to go get some buddies and play this game.
And while I do think playing with people is a lot of fun, I have a large group of friends that I play with. There is something about sometimes just sitting down and just playing by myself that always gives me that little sense of relaxation, you know, relaxing and not having to deal with the bullshit.
Yeah. So, a few more things I want to point out, though. In the older games, again, there is... So, in the older God of War games, there are connections to be made between them, Devil May Cry, like we said, but also Dante's Inferno.
Yes.
I loved that game, and I'm going to be starting to record that and putting it on the channel too. Dude,
that game was so much fun. I actually had a copy of that game, but guess what? It got cracked whenever I moved last time. So I've looked for. I guess I just haven't really looked for another copy because I unfortunately am the one who has an Xbox 360. So I want to play it again, and I really think that would be a fun game to play again. I loved it so much.
Yeah. Beyond that, though, there was actually something that I did with God of War Ghost of Sparta that I did this for fun. So basically, it was a drunk play. I would play a drunk play.
Oh, so you did, you just kept drinking while playing?
Specifically, I played on hard mode, and drank a shot of vodka every time I died.
Kids, don't do this at home. Wolf is a professional.
Yeah, so the first recording session, I was 2 hours and 13 shots in.
How'd that go for you?
Well, number one, I had made the mistake of starting to drink before I'd eaten anything.
Oh, you're an idiot.
I'm brilliant at times, but even I have my moments of stupidity. I, at one point, took a break to order some Chinese food. Ordering the Chinese food was no problem. Going and getting it, and then going back to my room was the difficult part. I had to hold on to the hallway wall as I stumbled towards... I stumbled towards the front desk, got my food, thanked the guy, stumbled back to my room, got back into my room, had a moment where I had to pause, smacked my lips a little bit like... I set my food down on the counter, walked over to the sink, and then proceeded to spend the next couple minutes violently vomiting.
Yep. I have done the same thing, except we played Drunk Uno with my buddies when we were on base.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had eaten some pizza and drank a whole bunch of vodka. And the MPs came to my door because I was being too loud. Because we were kind of in the barracks.
Yeah.
And I puked all over the MPs' boots.
They must have liked you!
Well, okay, let me just say, most of them I knew. The ones that came, I knew them because they were just some people that I had met before, friends with. So I got out of it, kind of. That's a story for another time. We'll just leave it alone.
But yeah, hunched over the sink, I didn't even throw anything up after the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's usually how it becomes. I actually puked so much that I tore the inner lining of my esophagus and had to go to the hospital.
Yeah. And here you are
I'm
calling me an idiot.
moron.
Here you are calling me an idiot.
Well, you know I drink so much more than you. I have to.
This reminds me of an Avatar: The Last Airbender meme that I saw, where it talks about. Yeah, have you seen that show?
Yes. Avatar: Last Airbender.
So there was a meme that I saw where it was like, Aang and Sokka, when they're on their own, they can be pretty brilliant, but when you get those two together, it becomes a living version of my last two brain cells.
Okay, I like it. I like where we're going with this.
But yeah, I recorded God of War Ghost of Sparta, and by and large, I was doing it where every time I died, I take a shot of vodka.
Yeah.
I had to take a break from that at one point because I had stuff that was coming up in the near future. So at one point, I went through a series of like 20 deaths in like an hour. In my defense, I was facing off against a bunch of sirens and a Cyclops in the same room. This was problematic.
How'd that go?
I had these big tanky motherfuckers running after me all the time. I had these sirens who had the ability to attack me from the other end of the room, and who were super quick and tough to actually hit. It was on hard mode, so they could not only hit super hard, but they could take one hell of a beating. I died so many times against that little group.
Please tell me you didn't drink while doing all that.
No, that's the part where I had to take a break because I had stuff to do later that day. I had to do some grocery shopping.
Alright, well, yeah, I mean, I've played a whole bunch of games where it's like, oh, let's take a shot. Like, oh, here's actually something funny. When I started college, and I'd be doing, like, study sessions with my class, it would be, like, every 30 minutes, I'd be taking a shot of some cinnamon toast, because I don't like studying. But here's the thing. The more tired I was, the more I remembered. So I thought, oh, if I get drunk, I'll be tired. If I'm tired, I'll remember them. And hey, I'm a 4.0 student after 2 years, so fuck anyone who says anything.
But yeah, so back on track though, I started doing a God of War Ghost of Sparta drunk play. I think I'll double check this, but I think I have all the footage recorded, ready to be uploaded. I just haven't gotten around to uploading it. I don't really have much else to say on God of War. The series is just so great.
Yeah, there's really, I mean, in all honesty, there's really nothing I can say to basically say bad about it. I've heard nothing but great things. I've seen nothing but great things. The community that backs it is amazing and absolutely phenomenal. And might I also say, for one final thing, Christopher Judge, thank you. His voice as Kratos is just godly.
Have you heard him saying the dad jokes?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
We should end the video with that. Let's watch that.
Let's do that, but first I want to talk about this. In the first God of War game, there was some bonus features, and they were talking about the creation of the game itself. Number one, it was involved, to say the least.
Yeah.
But beyond that, they were talking about the creation of Kratos.
Okay.
Okay, so what they found when they were creating Kratos, they were trying to make a very brutal, very savage warrior, and they eventually, of course, succeeded. But the problem is that they went through like dozens of character designs trying to find Kratos.
Yeah.
The problem was that when they were trying to go more authentic, more Greek, with like the armor design, the helmet and such, they found that it just did not capture that brutality. So eventually they started stripping the armor away, and it started to click in their heads, okay, stripping away the armor, take away the civility, make this character just like this animalistic guy.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And eventually they got to the point where it's just like this shirtless guy with like originally blue tattoos with these chain swords, and they finally, when they saw that, they're like, that's Kratos. That's Kratos right there. They eventually changed his tattoo to red, but yeah, that's basically it.
God, I can't imagine what it would have been like trying to be in the minds of the developers at that time, like creating a game that they would have never known to have blown up this much. You know what I mean?
It was like a Five Nights at Freddy's thing for them.
Oh yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's blew up like fucking insane.
Yeah, so that's the big thing. They even talked about how Greek mythology has so many elements in it that are just like perfect to make a video game out of.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and pull up that dad jokes with Kratos.
God. So a lot of people actually don't know. I actually have Christopher Judge. I originally know him from Stargate, not from being the voice for Kratos. So I just wanted to say that seeing him as Kratos was like a dream come true, honestly. His voice is perfect for it.
Okay.
Here we go.
I am terrified of elevators. I am going to start taking steps toward them. That was pretty good.
Even he had to admit that was good.
I used to hate facial hair, but then it grew on me. Why did they put a gate on Helheim? Because people were dying to get in.
He's trying so hard.
Huh. Why don't crabs give to charity? Because they're shellfish, boy. What do you call a blind deer? No idea. I don't trust stairs. They are always up to something. What do dark elves learn in kindergarten? The alphabet. What, Atreus, is brown and sticky? A stick. Only fire when I tell you to fire.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I am Dad.
It's funny how a man with a deep voice and some simple dad jokes can make you laugh.
That last one, though, okay, so two things. First off, I've actually used I used to not like facial hair. And then I'll go, but then it grew on me.
And then it grew on you.
For the last one, though, honestly, the best part of the last one was, it wasn't like, I'm dad, like in modern dad jokes. It was, I am dad.
Alright, I think it's time to end this shit post.
The shit post was the reaction video, goddammit.
True.
So before we log off, we need to talk about the next podcast we do. So
are we doing the Imperium of Men?
I think that would be a good way to go about it. We do like one Warhammer podcast and then one non-Warhammer podcast, and kind of like having alternate. So yeah.
Yes. So I would like to say that I am definitely getting into Warhammer. I'm enjoying everything that you've told me about so far.
Oh yeah.
I'm kind of trying to do some background research while I have free time, but currently I'm in college full time working and doing clinical rotations for my medical stuff. So I don't really have a lot of time, so I'm just trying my best to get through all that. Once this year is over, things should settle down, and I should be able to start making more videos often.
I think one thing that's going to surprise some people is the fact that the two idiots of this podcast are so well educated.
Yeah, it's like, oh, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm actually in the medical field. So is he.
But people will watch this, and if they don't know much about it, they're thinking, who are these two morons? And then find out that, oh, well, okay, so do you have a degree, Reaper?
No, at the end of this year, I'll get my degree in science and everything.
Bachelor's?
No, it'll be my associates.
Okay. So yeah, we have Reaper who's finishing up his associates, me who's already done my bachelor, who's gotten my bachelor's. Like, people are gonna look at this and like, who are these two idiots? These motherfuckers almost have a PhD between the two of them. Like,
yeah, I'll be getting my bachelor's probably next year, or within the next 2 years.
Like, people will be looking at this like, what the fuck? But yeah, I will say this. I cannot wait to tell you about the Imperium of Man, because the Imperium of Man, especially the regular guardsmen,
yeah,
you know pretty well that my praise does not come easily.
Yes.
The Imperial faction known as the Astra Militarum, their named characters are fucking Giga Chads.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but I'm not sure I understand, but I'm intrigued. Let's go with that.
Okay, let me put it like this. Any named character in the Imperial Guard, they're the kinds of people who, if they said, I fucked your mother, you look at your mom and go, and high-five her.
Okay, so thank you for watching the video. If you liked the video, please click the like button down below.
A nice way to end the video, right?
If you're not subscribed already, click that subscribe button. Put the bell icon so you can see notifications that when we upload. We will be doing more videos, more podcasts, like we said. The next podcast we're going to do on the Imperium of Men, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that one off, because I don't want to hear more about that yet.
So yeah, go ahead and stay tuned for more of this wholesome content.
Yes, wholesome content.
Alright, I'm logging off.
Alright, I'm Axel Reaper.
Alpha White Wolf. Bye.
We'll see y'all later.